Well, there we go. So now we're recording. And the next thing to do is to actually share my screen. I have to talk myself through this each time, Kelly, or else I miss a step. It's a few steps. So awesome. So welcome everyone to RE Investing in Heels. I've had double header today, so I'm running a 7-day challenge on how to supercharge your investor pipeline, and I'm back to back with that and today's Heels on Fire series. So I'm loving this. This is right in my wheelhouse. I enjoy, just sharing and educating. So, oh, let's go back this way. So this is Heels on Fire. It is presented by RE Investing in Heels, empowering women to ditch that 9-to-5. We're a group of real estate investing women that supports each other. We're all different levels of investing and years of investing. So we're here to just help each other educate and be each other's cheerleaders in that. A little about me. I've been investing for 4 years, and I presently have 6 properties in my portfolio, 5 of them in BC and 1 in Alberta, as a joint venture partnership on that. I've had other properties in like Barrie, Ontario, joint venture partner, and I've had in Calgary also, but I've sold those since, and I'm now dedicated to my attention now is going into land development and my coaching. So I'm a dedicated coach now, full time. I've quit that 9-to-5, and I'm doing this. I'm now corporate to entrepreneur here. So I'm empowering individuals to find their financial freedom, share my expertise in joint venture partnerships, creative financial strategies, the Burr method, and I'm invested in, like, my rental strategies range from, I do both long-term, short-term, and mid-term rentals there. So the only thing I don't do is rent to own. So I'm quite versed in that. I'm also invested in passively in private lending and in apartment funds, syndicated mortgages and land development there. And I am personally I'm kicking off a land development project in Merritt, BC. So I will be, raising funds for that. So if anyone's interested, to find out more about that, please reach out to me. The returns are very good. And so I also have my own short-term rentals, and I was running that, and I've actually wrapped that up. So I was hosting with a partner and had my own hosting company that I was hosting for others, but I've decided that I need to scale back and concentrate on just one thing. Well, in my case, 2 things: land development and coaching there. And I don't want to spread myself too thin, so I'm self-managing my short-term rentals, but I've pulled back on the being a host for others in that area, but happy to help others with what I've learned and what I'm learning as I go through that. And so today, this has the wrong date on it. This was the old one that I've tried to repurpose. So Kelly was supposed to be here on August 30th, but he had a conflict there. So, he was kind to rebook us for now. So I'd like to welcome Kelly Wheadon, and I'll let you speak to a bit about your background, Kelly, but Kelly's going to go through how to gain that financial confidence. So go through a bit of the basics in finances. So, and some of these things that we think that are basic for, as Kelly's, an expert in this field, he might think that it's basic for him, but for us, it might be something we haven't even thought of. So I really wanted to invite Kelly on here to speak to our group and to share his knowledge with us. So thank you for being here, Kelly. And over to you to speak a little about who you are and what you do, and I will stop sharing and give you control.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Debbie. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I've actually been in the financial industry. Wow, it's been 7 years now. This was not my path of profession, actually. And a lot of people kind of do the same thing. We fall into real estate as well, and maybe that wasn't our real passion. And then it becomes a career for us. So I actually came from an oil field background. I was a journeyman parts technician by trade. I built light armored vehicles for the military. Nothing that screamed finances. I was actually a naturally very shy person, and I actually really didn't like math. So all of these things, when you think of money and finance, that can scare a lot of people. And I got into the industry actually after my sister passed away, and it's coming up 10 years now. And I saw what happens when you have property and not a will. I also saw what happens when you feel guilty that you have to go back to work, or that you can't afford to take more time off. I was just one of those people that I didn't want to be a burden to people. So I wanted to go back to my job, but I also left my parents dealing with a lot of stuff. So 6 months after my sister passed, my uncle ended up passing away. And I was told I couldn't take any time off. So I knew that there was different opportunities for me. I just didn't know where to go. And I'm just very thankful that someone talked to my wife about disability coverage. And that's kind of what led me into the industry, because I knew my career was ending building light armored vehicles because it was actually closing down. I went back to school for massage therapy. You're probably wondering, what has any of this to do with finance? It all actually comes full circle, because going to massage therapy school, in the midst of that is when I got into 2 car accidents with my sister's car. I believe she cursed me. I still love her. But you know what? Things happen. And I ended up getting nerve damage in my neck and shoulder. There went my massage career. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, everybody in my classroom is going to need disability coverage. Everyone in my classroom is going to need maybe a mortgage, maybe some financial business management. So I called back my advisor, because they had told me about an opportunity. And I'm like, yeah, me and finance, I like money, but no. I started to learn the industry, because I realized I was not as confident as I thought I was. I thought I had it pretty good. I was joining Keyspire and real estate investing. We were looking at, having a couple properties, landlording, but you kind of get those conversations of, hey, how are you doing, slumlord? How are those properties? Are you a millionaire yet? And maybe sometimes you are hearing that from people who are close friends, and you're just like, I'm just trying to do something better for my life. So that really opened my eyes to everybody has an opportunity to become wealthy, but whatever wealthy is to them. So everyone that's joining in right now, and everyone that I can see online, has a different persona of what wealth is to them. Somebody could say 100 grand is wealthy. Someone can say 100 million is wealthy to them. So how do we gain confidence in all of that? So I just can't stress enough that it's the difference about, the lifestyle that you want. That's going to be the number one key, is figuring out the lifestyle you want. Am I able to share my screen? Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to move pictures around. All right. So thumbs up, you guys can see my lovely screen. All right. So gaining financial confidence. Who would just like to feel more in control? Not only of just where their money goes, but just feeling control about their money. So, I worked oil field, made some pretty decent money. I thought I had things were pretty good. My bills were paid. I could go on a couple trips here and there, and that's maybe satisfying to some people. But then you start to have family members that maybe pass away, and you start to see your parents getting a little bit older. We get a little bit older. Our kids are getting a little bit older, and we start to go, oh my gosh, I don't have the things I want. I should be farther along in life, maybe. So then what do we do? So what I'm going to do here is kind of go over I'm going to say basic stuff. And what I mean by basic is you can actually find this stuff online. Okay. Google budgeting, Googling all of this stuff. But when it comes down to it, there's more than just steps to follow. There's also things we need to think about when we're actually building plans for our life. So if you think about it in real estate, and I'm, Debbie has a lot of real estate, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of real estate people on this call, possibly. The most important thing we do when we're building a home is building that foundation, pouring the concrete, making sure it's stable so we can build the walls, build the roof, and then build everything inside of that. So it's kind of the same thing with our finances. We have a blueprint, the architect of what we're going to do. But really, before we even put anything down on paper, it goes up into our mind first of what we want. So we have that dream life, we design it on paper, and then we start to build it. Now, whenever you've ever done a renovation or built a home and you hired a contractor, has it been perfect every time? Probably not. Probably not. There's always, at some point, you run into a snag, a problem, an issue. So you've got to be able to kind of pivot with that. So what happens when that goes? What we're going to do, we're going to go over how we're actually going to grow this, how we're actually going to grow the confidence, but how you're going to be able to grow the lifestyle that you want. I just got to change some screens here. So I like to say 80% is actually psychological, while the remaining 20% is about strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the first 20% strategies to get us to gain more confidence, and then actually break into the psychological part of it. I like to say, many people have tried to get maybe into better shape, better health. It's literally, I'd say 95% diet, 3% working out, or, 95% psychological, 3% working out, 1% diet. It all kind of goes together. You have to think your way into it first. So when we think about, I'm going to go over 10 strategies first to start building on the confidence. It's like stacking the bricks. Okay. So the one thing is you have to set a clear goal. And I know you've probably heard these in many different classes that you've maybe been to, but unless we're clear on what we're wanting to build, we can't take the right steps and put the pieces together. So if you're trying to build a bungalow, but you got the blueprints to a fourplex, it's really not going to work out, or vice versa. So you want to make sure that when you want to achieve what you want to achieve with your money, whether it's saving for retirement, buying a home, or paying off debt, having that goal in place. 2 is create a budget. I hate the word budgeting. It's like dieting. Nobody wants to do it. But tracking your income and expenses. So if you see here on the top left of the screen, there's this kind of big, long link. I can send this to you. This is actually through the CRA. So those people, if people are plugging in from the US, this is Canadian. This is actually a tracking sheet that is live, and you can punch in the numbers, and you can put it from monthly to biweekly to every 2 weeks to weekly. And the great thing is it auto calculates it. Like I said, I don't really like math. I like easy. You want to punch in the numbers, everything's automatic. So with this, you can know where you're at right now. That's a big key, knowing where your money is going right now. A lot of people are having more month than they do money. So being able to go, okay, this is where I'm at today. I want to go here by year 3 or year 1, year 3, year 5. That way, you know, maybe where some things need to change, or maybe it's not as bad as you think it is, or maybe there's some tweaks that have to happen. So that's key, is knowing where your money is going. That will gain a lot of confidence for you. And then build an emergency fund. You know, save at least 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a separate savings account for emergencies. Now I understand there's a lot of times where you're just like, I don't have extra money to put away to an emergency. I don't have that extra fund. So how do I start that? Fall back on the budget sheet, knowing where your money is going. Because what we want to do is when we can stack the wins of, hey, I was able to put this money away here. I was able to pay this off. It starts to actually fill yourself with endorphins that you can do more. That's where we want to start leveling ourselves up to that. Okay, so then of course, we're always told, make sure our credit cards are paid off at the end of the month. However, when we're doing renovations and things like that, they're not going to get paid off right away. So what we want to do is there's some techniques. So sometimes it's like pay off the highest debt, focus on paying that down first. That can also reduce and free up more cash flow to put money into savings and investments. There's also opportunities to call your credit card companies and actually ask for a lower interest rate. That's one way to actually reduce it. And it's also an action of taking power over what your credit card companies are doing. Sometimes that alone is just empowering itself to ask for something. They may or may not do it, but most credit card companies will allow you to do a lower interest rate. So for example, I had a credit card that was at 22%. That was crazy. Called them up and said, yeah, can I get a lower interest rate? They lowered it down to 11. Just like that. That is huge savings. That empowers me to actually save more. And then learn about investing. Now, I like to say not everybody is passionate about learning about stocks and bonds and investments and TFSAs and RSPs, but have a base understanding. Learn to know what the differences are. Learning to know about how to diversify our portfolio. I recommend sitting with a professional. Like right now, everybody on this call that's tuning in is here to learn. So stack that down as a win for yourself to say, hey, I am learning how to gain control. That's a huge thing. And to remember that you're not alone in this. Continually educate yourself. There's so much free content online. But I'm going to say too, with that, I like to say you can get paralysis by analysis. Sometimes there's too much information. You don't know where to focus on. So I like what Debbie was saying when she was introducing just herself, that there are many steps she has to talk herself through on starting the process of starting up this call so she doesn't forget the steps. Well, it's the same thing with our finances and everything. Learn one thing and take the steps to learn it to get more comfortable with it. If you're trying to learn too many things all at once, it can get very frustrating and it can actually, I feel, set you back in your confidence. Because if I'm not grasping one thing, but I can grasp something else, and then I get freaked out that I can't learn this one thing, then I've just diffused all the other things I was able to learn. So when you can get a better understanding in just one area, maybe it's just investments, maybe it's just in what are the different types of portfolios? If it's within real estate, learning the BRRRR system, learning a flip, learning to just how to get a permit, that's a key thing. Taking the courses to kind of just learn the basics, but also seek a professional. Within the real estate communities, there's always someone to talk to that has accomplished something. So that's always important to do. Then that financial literacy is an ongoing process. And as you gain knowledge, I like to say no one's going to be an expert because always things are going to be changing. But it's important to be able to manage things more confidently so that you can become more effective as well. So then how to save for retirement. That's another one. As when we're younger, we don't really think about our future. I'd like to say we try, but we're also kind of more in the moment. But saving for retirement, contributing to, regular accounts, tax-free savings accounts, RRSPs. I always recommend if you have an RRSP plan at work, take advantage of it. If there's a way that your employer is going to contribute to that, I'd like to say it's free money. Might not be invested with, major large returns, but at least it's something. So that's an option too. Take advantage of that, and then the different types of investment vehicles, tax-free savings accounts, tax-free, RSPs, open accounts. I see something in the chat. Yes.
That's
yes,
me.
you can ask lower rates.
I'm just putting notes out there. So don't worry, Kelly. If there are any questions come up in the chats, I'll let you know.
Perfect. And you know what? I want to make this interactive too. If people have questions as I'm going through a slide, if it comes up, I'm totally okay with just answering it as is too. The next thing from saving, ooh, here's the big one. Taxes. How do we pay less taxes? We have a lot of tax in Canada. So learning how taxes work, including deductions, credits, and how to file your taxes correctly. I like to say, let the professionals do your taxes, but also finding a good one. You don't always have to be with the same one that maybe our parents used or that you've been using for a long time. Because as I'll say, I know I'm going to fall back on the real estate side of things. Not every accountant understands real estate. So it's very important to making sure that you do have things set up, whether or not you're getting a limited partnership, a corporation, is it just personal taxes? What are areas and ways to reduce taxes? This can help maximize your income as well. And it's also important when you are doing wealth transfer. So a prime example is if you have a corporation or a business that you can put your children as an employee. It does not matter how old they are. Talk to your accountant about this though. But when you do that and you can set up a payroll on your kids, even if they don't make an income, they can file taxes, which means that they can get sometimes money back. So it starts them building up credit as well, but you can actually start getting tax deductions for yourself in your business. Something I wish my parents would have done, but my parents are very much don't rock the boat. So, but these are areas that most of us can actually benefit. So we can, talk to a tax accountant about that as well. But there's definitely some ways if you are an employee, sometimes having your own business on the side or something that you can do that can generate tax deductions. A lot of people don't realize too, is there's things like disability tax credits that a person can get. Now that's more specialized in when people think of disabilities, they think of people in wheelchairs or autistic or someone with Down syndrome. The reason why I bring this up, my wife got paid for hypothyroidism and PTSD. So there's money back for that you can actually then claim as a tax credit on your taxes. So sometimes there's little strategies when you can talk to a professional that you aren't aware of. So I can go into more detail at another time or even ask questions at the end of this.
Darn, I could have claimed PTSD on my from my fire.
So potentially, yes. Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, it's interesting. And Kelly, and I think like that's the thing that like you said, our definition of disability, it needs to be broadened because any sort of neuro diversity ones, anything to do with, I think even things like uh, what's it called? Um, uh,
ADHD,
yeah,
anxiety, depression,
and
scoliosis.
but
Think of anybody that that has diabetes or wears a hearing aid. Those are actually disabilities
mhm.
that can be claimed. A lot of people don't realize that there could potentially be money available. Imagine how about people have been in car accidents and they go to a chiropractor because of constant back pain. Now, it is based on seeing your doctor and stuff like that, but there is potential. So I know I had someone that got $17,000 for arthritis. They're in their 70s. Just imagine. So it's little things that we are not made aware of. And that's why this session, I feel, is also very, very important too. It's just sometimes it's conversations that you don't know what it could lead to.
Mm.
Now,
I think the interest that what you said, Kelly, about make your children as employees. I think that's a good one to look into
oh,
with
definitely,
tax
because
benefits. I never knew that one either.
then you cycle them getting back money on income tax, and then you take that money and you can put it into their RESPs. Or you can do, I'll go into some of this too, is like the tax sheltering life insurances. That is an avenue that's an untapped market. Many people have heard about the, be your own banker and the infinite banking concepts. Sometimes as we get older, our health isn't the best and we're trying to put these policies on ourselves. Look at it for the children. Huge, I'll say a huge market for a lot of people that they don't realize, or for their grandkids. So then understanding how to build credit wisely. We've all heard of good debt, bad debt, what appreciates, what depreciates, things like that. Establishing and maintaining good credit, that's basics. Paying your bills on time, having a strong credit history. A lot of people don't realize that if you get a credit card and you're like, you know what, I paid it off, woo, you throw it away and you cancel it. But when you cancel it, you also get rid of your history. And I didn't realize that, and until I got into the industry. I'm like, what do you mean? If I cancel my card because I don't want it anymore, but as soon as you cancel it, I just lost 5 years of good payment history. That can actually hurt your credit. So you also want to make sure if you have a credit card that has no annual fees, or have one that's manageable. Use it in case of emergencies. A strong credit history can save you money on loans and interest and insurances. My stepson right now, trying to find a place to rent and all this, he doesn't have credit because he's, just 20 years old. But we were teaching him, get a small credit card, pay it on time so you can build up the credit history. But when you're young, you don't really have a history. So sometimes as parents, you can set up a small credit card or put a bill in your kids' names, making sure that it's getting paid off. So it'll actually help build up their credit as well. So there's little things like that. What you want to watch for on credit cards is like creditor protection and the different types of insurance. Now, making sure if you have life insurance, get rid of the creditor protection on your credit cards. There's also a little tool you can try, and I know one of my agents did this. She called her credit card company and asked for the recording when she approved and authorized the creditor protection, because she said, I don't remember authorizing this and I've asked for it to be canceled. And they couldn't prove on a recording that she had authorized this. They gave her a very large credit on her credit card. They basically paid back a lot of the creditor protection. Now, will that work 100% of the time? I'm not sure, but it's worth a try.
Well,
Because every time you call into your credit card companies, they record those calls.
It does happen, Kelly. And, I've noticed in June, I've suddenly noticed, and I've got to call Scotiabank and find out. I'm now seeing a charge coming out for 200 and something for an insurance, first insurance on a loan. Now, I've always said to Scotiabank that I do not want any of the protection, not on my mortgages or anything, but suddenly something's popped up on there. And someone I was speaking to said that sometimes they slip in these letters saying, I'm automatically adding it to you now unless you tell me otherwise. And that might have happened to me.
And
And
we usually
because it gets
ignore
so
those
much,
emails.
yeah, or
Yep.
or the letters too, because it's like, I know I did, and it's like, I thought, okay, no, I don't need to do this, do anything here, because I don't want it. But I didn't read any of the fine print. So now I have to call them, find out who's adding this, and remove it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they've
And
got
to say, I want a
a few
credit
months
for
ago.
it.
Hmm.
So sometimes those little things do bring money back to us. So then now we can stack more and more wins and be like, even if they say no, you can at least say, hey, you know what, I tried. That in itself, instead of just like, you know what, I don't want to be bothered by it. But if you actually say, hey, I'm taking the steps to try and do something about it, even though that might be frustrating, you can still give yourself a win on that, that you are working to empower yourself to say, no, I'm not putting up with this kind of crap. Like, fix this. Banks, though, are sometimes hard to deal with.
Something I found out on the I found this out when I was young, actually, on for building my credit score, is that I had a car loan, and a few years later, when the loan interest went down, I took out another loan to pay off that loan to lower the interest.
Yes.
So I took one out, paid off that one, and I got a nice bump in my credit score by
Oh
doing
yeah,
that.
that is a huge thing, because now you have less of an interest rate, but now you have more buying power, because now you've paid off one, it shows good credit.
Yep. Although I
That
took another credit, another loan to pay it, but it shows, oh, you're very good at paying your loans.
exactly. And sometimes we cycle it like that too. And a lot of times with our credit, I'll go back to this.
Mhm.
Sometimes with our credit too, if you have a $10,000 loan and you owe $8,000, that doesn't actually not look good in the credit scores. If you have a $15,000 loan but owe $8,000, it actually looks better, because you have more buying power. So will I say, whenever you'll go into the bank, they're like, oh, you're eligible for a line of credit, you're eligible for this. It's not a bad thing to accept those. Watch the fine print, but also know your spending habits. If you don't have control and you get the line of credit and you max it out, and you get this and you max it out, and you don't have the money to come in to pay that off, that's when the cycle starts to get very frustrating, and can get very scary for people. When you have available credit, though, that is what gives you the opportunity to do more with it. Doesn't mean you always have to use it. Oh,
Something I just told my mom, and she didn't click on that, was, she had just done some big purchases and couldn't pay it all, like on her credit card, and couldn't pay it all in the one go. So she was like, oh, I'll pay as much as I can. And I'm like, Mom, you've got a line of credit. Take the line of
use the
credit,
lower interest rate.
pay off the credit card, right? And then use the lower interest rate on that. So when you're getting those opportunities to, like, you've got a line of credit, or you've got one that says balance transfer over, right? Use that.
Yes. And then there's things too. You can also Google 0% interest credit cards. MBNA has one, CIBC is not too bad. And sometimes they give you promotions like 18 months or 12 months, zero interest. So then you do a balance transfer. You pay maybe 1, 2, or 3% to do the transfer. So yes, the institution makes a little bit of money, but now you're getting a 0% interest. Now you've paid off this that is charging you interest, and now you don't have interest on this. Now, say you could get a good comfy amount on a credit card, and you go do, a short-term loan, bridge loan, or a real estate investment, or something that gives you a high interest rate return, then you can pay it off just before the card is up. Those types of techniques, though, you have to be very disciplined to do, because that could get you into a lot of trouble if you extend it too long. So this is kind of where
And if
the
you don't pay
planning,
it back in the 18 months, then it's like, I did that. I missed it.
20%.
I
Yeah.
missed it because of I did that for Home Depot. And I did my renovations and I deferred it. And I was still paying a little every month, more than the required to do the monthly payments. But I knew that in May I would pay the rest. And in May was when I lost my house in the fire, and I missed it. And whoa, this huge, like, I think it was like something like, I don't know, 300 and something dollars in interest came on, and that hurt. That
Yeah.
really
And you're
hurt.
just like, so this is where planning, and then kind of you plan. It's hard to say plan for the unexpected. You don't expect your house to burn down. You don't expect a furnace to go. You don't expect things to happen, but there's steps when you're planning as well. So, if you want to save for a big purchase like a car, now, if you're going to buy a house, do not go buy a car first. Because what happens when you go to get a car loan, they shop around to find you financing. With that, it's a loan. They don't realize it's a car loan. So that stays on your credit longer. With a mortgage, when you are shopping around for a mortgage, it usually only lasts about 7 days. And it's a softer hit compared to a car loan. So that's just kind of a food for thought. I didn't know that until I got into this industry going, oh yeah, that's why when you buy a car, you can never really buy a house. Buy the car after. It's easier to get financing for a car. You would be surprised. You could probably get a car with no money. So avoid relying on credit for a lot of these expenses. Is it always kind of, an ideal world? No, but we tend to want things now. We are very much in a society of instant gratification. Strategize as best as you can to buy now, pay later, but you have to be very, very disciplined to do that. Best I would recommend is at least try and save quite a bit of it up front. Or if you want something, take a few months, weeks, if you can, and see what it would be like making that payment. It sounds good on paper, or it looks good on paper. Yeah, I could probably afford $200, $300, $400 a month. Then really life starts to happen. You're like, I can't afford that. So planning for short and long term. Now, how planning is going to help you. Many of you may or may not have heard of this. It's called the Rule of 72. This is not something I've created. This was something from a very, very brilliant man. You look him up, Albert Einstein. What you do is you take the number 72 and you divide it by the rate of return you're getting. That equals the amount of time it takes for your money to double. So if you think about it, take 72, and I actually have a client who was getting 0.25% at the bank. So what you do is you go 72 divided by 0.25. Don't put the percent sign in, just 0.25. So if you had $10,000 at the bank, getting 0.25%, it's going to take 288 years to double. Now, what's the average credit card rating right now? 20%. So if you owed $10,000 on your credit card right now, in 3.6 years, basically just paying the minimum, which is really not paying off the principal, you're going to double what you owe in 3.6 years. Now you can see why savings for a lot of people is going very, very, it takes way too long, and debt is going up. So even if you can get a 4% rate of return on investments, it's still going to take 18 years to double. That is why we do say start young. It's a lot better. You have a lot more time. And this is why people want these types of returns, because it takes less time for your money to double. Makes sense, right? Higher returns get you better growth on your money. So then what do we do? How do we make things happen? So here's some strategies that for paying down debt. There's something called the snowball or avalanche method. This involves making minimum payments on all debt. Then you pay off the smallest debt first before moving on to the bigger ones. I've got a couple more slides. I'll show you too kind of how that looks. The debt avalanche method can result in paying less interest over time. So yes, paying less interest is like paying less tax. That's what we want. Doing things automated. I like to say out of sight, out of mind. So when it comes to investments, sometimes it's we do things right off of our paycheck. Our RSP plan just comes right off our paycheck. We don't see it. It's before the tax dollars. We take home our checks. So also automatically paying our bills. That's a huge one. We can either set it up monthly or set it up weekly or bi-weekly so that you just know that things are just going to get paid automatically. Life, I like to say we have decision fatigue all the time. When are we waking up? When should we go to bed? What are we going to have for lunch? What are we going to have for dinner? What are we going to have? Doing this. Our decisions, when we have so much on our plate, things get forgotten. Like you said, Debbie, things happen in life that caused you to, I didn't get this paid on time. So the more automated we can get, the better. And I like to say schedule reviews. My wife and I, we started to realize a lot of things, and we have a weekly check-in. We call it the "Are we okay?" check-in. So we're checking in with our relationship, but we're also checking in with our finances. Sometimes knowing what each other's spending habits or saving habits are. If you can marry someone that's just like you, that could be a good thing. But if you're both spenders, that's maybe not good. Or if you're both savers, maybe you're not enjoying life to the fullest. So you want to have a happy balance and always checking in with yourself. So going back to kind of debt, explaining what the snowball method is. I like this slide because I literally got this offline. So just so you know, there's two methods when you're tackling debt. Snowball can make minimum payments monthly. So what you would do is like you have your credit cards or your lines of credits and you're paying your payments. You keep them all the same. But what you're going to do is you're just going to make an extra payment on just that one with the smallest loan. You want to get that done as soon as possible. Maybe it's an extra 25 bucks. Maybe it's an extra 50 bucks. Once that small one is paid off, you take all that money and you put it onto the next one. And then when that one's done, you take all that and you put it on the next one. Makes sense? That's called the snowball effect. When it's paid off, you move to the next loan debt. Next one. Now the avalanche, this focuses on the high interest as a priority. Now the high interest could be maybe the one that you owe the most amount on though. So you still make minimum payments on each debt monthly, but what you're doing is you're going to make extra payments to the highest interest. So snowball is you're making payments on the lowest loan, and the avalanche is you're making extra payments on the highest interest rates. That way, when it's paid off, you move to the next debt with the highest interest rate, because it's the interest rates that are typically killing us. Highest interest means we're owing more too quickly. So when we can tackle those things like that, we can get out of debt a lot quicker, out of the bad debts. So I like to say this is kind of like a budgeting rule. It's 50, 30, 20 budgeting rule. 50% of our money goes to our needs: groceries, housing, utilities, maybe health insurance or insurances, car payments, things like that. The wants are 30% of that money: shopping, dining out, hobbies. Is this a perfect science? No. I like to say kind of fit kind of what's going to fit for you, but sometimes it's sitting down with someone to help you decide what's going to be the best fit, because everyone has different goals, different needs, different lifestyles. So kind of finding a customized plan that suits them. Just like, for my wife and I, we had some rental properties, we were doing some renovations, and we're just realizing, I don't want to be a landlord. That's not something we want to do anymore. So that takes that part out of, our rule of real estate investing is we don't want to be landlords. Debbie's shown that she does many different things too, and she's taken things out that no longer fits her lifestyle pattern. So that's very important to also know, what is that pattern that you want? And then the rest goes to savings. Many of us have probably heard, save 10% of your annual income. Not a lot of people can do that. So how do we get to a point where we can have the things we want and do the things we want to do? Now, the sad face. Okay, what this is number 10. So this is what I feel is the most important. And like I said in the beginning, 80% is psychological. The way we think about money. Now, most of the things, if you go to personal development stuff, I do believe finances is part of personal development. Our thoughts produce feelings, which produce our actions, which gives us the results we want. So if we have a financial result that we do not like, what do we normally do? Pick up more hours, work harder, work longer hours, but then we're more miserable. I also kind of created an analogy that sometimes we spend more money from a job we don't like. So it's like, if you don't really care for your job, you're not really happy with it, or it's just, it's something that you just do to pay the bills. Well, what happens is when you get that paycheck, it could be a psychological thing that you don't want to hold on to that money anymore because it's from something you don't like. So you spend it a lot quicker. Maybe it is for you. Maybe that analogy doesn't fit for you. But the question
Well,
is to
I mean,
ask,
Kelly,
oh,
there's some logic in that too, because if I don't like where I'm, if I'm in a toxic environment, I don't enjoy what I'm doing, I may end up doing things to make me feel better. That's cost money. Like I may need to go for a massage because I'm stressed, or I
retail
may,
therapy.
yeah, in retail therapy or takeout because I'm too stressed to cook tonight. That sort of stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, that
Yeah,
is
it
it.
can be kind of like an attachment. So it's sometimes you just want to get rid of that money because it's attached to something we don't like, you know? So the question to also ask yourselves too, do you see yourself as a wealthy person? So the question with that is, do you believe you can be? And there are some incredible videos about becoming a conscious millionaire. Now that doesn't mean you're spending $1 million, but it's being able to, when you're out and about, put $10 in your wallet or $20 or $100 if you can, or your purse. And when you're shopping and you find something that you want to buy, but you don't really want to get it, you can be like, I don't need this, but I have the money in my wallet. Because how many times do we go out and say, I don't have the money for this? I don't have the cash for this. That is actually a psychological thing that we're actually doing to ourselves to keep us, I will say, in an unwealthy mentality. So I've even done it for myself, is like I always have cash in my wallet just to say I have, and know psychologically that there's always money. I always have money on me. That is very empowering. The less you can say to yourself, I don't have money, I can't afford that, you actually can start reversing things. And I'm going to say you're never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. We all know what to do. And I'm going to say, like, we all know how to work harder. We all know how to take those extra shifts, but, or maybe even take on another job. But does that really work? Is it more stressing ourselves out? Everything we want starts with what? Everything we want starts with what we want in our minds. If you're going to build a home, you're going to have to set out on a blueprint, on a diagram, what you want, where the rooms are going to be, how you're going to build the basement, where's the bathroom going to be, where's the plumbing going to be, where's the electrical going to be. We have to actually start designing our life a lot more like that so that we can then feel. And it's so interesting. That was one thing I always struggled with, feelings. Even my wife says it. you know, uh, they say feel your way to what you want. When you're buying a home, it can be so stressful, but it's so exciting when you put in the offer and all of these things are starting to happen. But when you've done it once or twice, you already know what it's like the next time. So that's why it starts to get easier and easier. And that's why people start to go, now I have all of these properties because I've done it before. So being able to do that, the action plan actually starts to unfold. So personally, I've even just started spending more time sitting, thinking about what I want, the money, the houses, the whatever it is, so that when it happens, it's just natural. And to some people, that's sometimes a really hard concept to grasp. And I mean, I think I've been fighting it probably for 7 years while being in this industry. But the more people that I've been sitting down with and showing the strategies to get to where that they want to go, they start to think about it a lot better. Now, if you're a person who, I'm going to say, because I deal with investments, so, stocks, bonds, TFSAs, all the different types of investments, when it comes down to a person's association with money. So here's an exercise I give my clients to do. Take a piece of paper, write money at the top of the page, and write down everything that comes to mind. Like everything, just brain dump it out. Because what you're going to do is you're going to realize what money traumas are, what money triggers. So when I started doing this for myself, it was like, we've heard our friends or even maybe our family say money doesn't grow on trees, money's the root of all evil. Oh, in my hometown, we had a place called Snob Hill, and I think most small places maybe have that. Why did we call that? Because we felt people were better than us. So when you start to write all of these things out and you realize, wow, I have this type of a relationship with money, maybe that's not a positive, not very good. When you sit down with someone and say, you sit down with me and I can go, hey, here's some great investments. This is the portfolio. The interest rates, 10, 12, 15%. That can look good to you, but at some point, they're going to go down because life happens, just like the housing markets. All that person is going to see is the negative, and they'll start to self-sabotage. And I've seen it time and time and time again. The better relationship you have with money, the easier way it is to attract the opportunities, the deals, all of these things will come about. So that's a key aspect. I know it's sometimes a lot to take in on that. And I'm going to say not every strategy is going to work for everybody. And I would say the most important thing to do is sit down with someone and I do complimentary conversations, just to see where things are at for you, like conversations about what does money mean to you? Where do you see yourself going? Many of you are probably, part of KeySpire or other real estate groups. You have a coach, and they always say, talk to your coach. That's what we're here for. You talk to your coach to help you get into the game of life that you want. I say we're all sitting too much on the sidelines, and it's time to gain that confidence, practice to get into the game and make it happen for yourselves. So I just here's a little bit of my information, my cell number, email address. If people want more information, please reach out to Debbie. I'm totally fine with her sharing my contact information with everybody. And that's everything I have in a nutshell. So if anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to be here and answer anything. I hope that was enough time.
Yep, that's good. Great, Kelly. Anyone have any questions for Kelly?
Did I blow it out of the park pretty well?
Well, I mean, Kelly, I don't have questions. I have comments. Like you've given so many really great tips that I never even thought of. It's like, oh, so I've been writing that down. But like and some of the things that you said too is like, oh yeah, like that the budget form. I try to stay away. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. But I like that idea about the endorphins part of it, because when I can say, oh, look, I can reduce the budget here, and I go tick, and then I'm like, oh, where else can I reduce it then if I could do it here? It's kind of like a checklist. We do checklists and they work for us because of the endorphins of ticking something off. So,
yeah, it's that reinforcement of the good things we do. So many people probably are parents here, and when we're young in school, we're just like, we want that gold star. We want to see those, not the red on our tests, exams, and stuff like that. We want that good positive thing. So we still need that as adults, because I feel we are lacking that so much. So the more we can stack on small wins of, even if it's calling a realtor about a property and going to look at it, whether you like it or not. Maybe it's getting your statement and sitting down with your advisor and having them explain a little bit more about what things are, or have someone else do a second opinion. Sometimes we get, I'll say, pigeonholed with what we've been doing, that sometimes we need fresh eyes. I started a renovation in my basement. My wife had a vision. We talked about the vision. I am not a contractor. Okay. I'm handy. I started putting things together, and I could see as she was coming into the basement, looking at stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't what you're visioning. No, you're doing good. I'm like, that's like hurts. I'm like, what? I think we need to hire someone. She's like, do we have the money? I'm like, I don't freaking care. I'm like, you have a vision. I'm not matching it. I'm okay to invest what we need. It was her massage room for her business. It needed to be what she needed. I'm very thankful we called somebody in because she wanted, I'll give you a little example. So we have a basement downstairs and she wanted this little desk underneath the stairs. And the contractor goes, I can't build you that because your entire second and third floor is based on this one 2x4. I'm like, oh, you mean the one that looks like this, not this? He's like, yes, I need to reinforce that whole area. I'm so thankful that I stepped out of my own ego and went, we need to hire somebody else. I can't do this on myself. And we actually saved ourselves a lot of money by spending the money. It was so interesting with that. I see some comments in the chat. I'll see.
They're more
Great
thanking
information.
you. There's all great, all awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janet. And thank you, Laura. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, something coming to mind that
I was just thinking of like tax planning, kind of things, reducing taxes, Kelly. And, you really should have that conversation with your accountant to do that because, even within corporations, like real estate investing is considered passive. So it gets charged in a corporation at 50%. But if you've got if you're doing property management, for instance, you could create a separate property management company that's active and move some of those, charge yourself that 15%, whatever market rate on the on property management, moving some of that income into that active company, and you're only paying 11%.
yeah. And sometimes you can just start off as a sole proprietor. So sole proprietor means you have taxable deductions, cell phone. You can write off utilities. You have a home-based office. Sometimes those little things can actually start you off very well. The tax sheltering, life insurance policies. What I find that gets kind of misinformed about is you have to medically qualify because it's a life insurance policy that you then dump extra money in that you can loan against. That's, I know Debbie's done some videos on that as well. So that's just one thing about that. You can also look at Smith maneuver. I know that's kind of, I like to say, the insurance is kind of like the Smith maneuver. You're paying down one thing to increase equity, and then it's tax deductions. With insurances too, if you have a corporation or a business, you can have your corporation put insurance on you, because then that becomes a tax deduction too. Check with your accountant, because you are like key person insurance of a corporation. Setting your kids up as silent voting partners, and then insurances is covered. Critical illness, corporate critical illness. You can do return of premiums. Corporation pays for it, tax deduction, and then you can get your money back tax-free later on. You do pay higher premiums, but you're going to get your money back. So sometimes it is that long-term things that we have to look at too. So lots of different avenues a person can take, but it's kind of like with the real estate strategies. Not every strategy is going to work for everybody. And you just got to kind of find what fits you, what are you comfortable with to help keep you on track. Because I can show you an elaborate plan. It's like, you know what, Janet, the plan that you want, you need to do this, this, and this. It's going to cost you $5,000 a month. You're going to be like, oh, that ain't going to happen. But what if I can show you some strategy that are just small enough to get you going? Maybe you're just getting into investing and saving, and where do you go? Of course, the younger we start, the better. Sometimes this can be as small as just learning how to save. But when you start to save, how do you think of money? So I'm going to give you guys just a little example. My wife and I, we tend to go for walks for our health. We pick up bottles. I'm not ashamed of it. It's cleaning up our environment. Okay. It's cleaning up our neighborhood. For 1 year, we did this. $1,500 we saved. We built a fence. That's what paid for our fence. So sometimes we have to think a little bit differently too on that. Now, I'm not saying everyone starts picking bottles, okay, but have a couple parties at your house. Tell everyone, no, like just little things that we can do that sometimes we think we have to do this when we can sometimes just do 1 or 2 steps. 1 to 2 things that actually compound over time to create the results we want. So I appreciate that. And if anybody has any questions, I would more than happy sit down one-on-one if people want, and just kind of, I like to say mastermind about it.
Great. Thanks so much, Kelly. I will have this, this presentation is on the Facebook group, and so it's on Facebook Live for anybody that wants to review it after that's on this call. But then for people that, watching it, if you could put in #replay, and I will also post in the files section. Kelly has given me this presentation, so I'll create a PDF out of it and I'll put it in there for you. And Kelly, your information's on the last slide on there, so we'll be able to get Kelly's contact information from that. So thank you
Perfect.
so much. Lots of food for thought. As you were saying things, I was like, oh, I could do that. Okay, do that. Like that interest rate. I totally forgot that those credit cards give you those lower interest rates, or sometimes I get it and say balance transfer. And I'm always thinking, well, I don't have any other credit cards to pay off because I pay it off every month. I never thought about if it's like for 9 months or something, I could take some of that and private lend it.
Mm-hmm.
I could put it in private lending, right?
Yeah.
I never
And some
thought about that until you were just saying that, and that thought came into my mind. Wait a minute, I could private lend it for like somebody that's looking for like a 3-month thing and have it back in the account like it's never been used, and paid 0% of that and made some money.
exactly. And sometimes you just need, we get busy, and I know we try to Excel sheets and we have this and we have this. And we're like, oh, I forgot to do that one step. I forgot to make that one call. That's why I'll say working with me will be a little bit different, because I'm going to be on you. Hey, Janet, you know what? We did this plan. We did these strategies. Did you call and make this happen? Did you do this? Oh, crap. No, I forgot. I'm always going to be checking it. That's why I feel it makes me a little bit different than a traditional advisor, because I also want to be immersed in what you're doing. And I feel sometimes that's just different than someone who works 9 to 5. I like to say we all work half days, 12 hours at least. Sometimes it feels like we're working 48 in one day, but
See, when you said half day, I thought 4 hours.
yeah, I know, right? I was like, oh, I could do a half day. Yeah, we joke around that it's like 12 hours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. Lots of food for thought. Kelly and I've talked about him coming on again for another topic because he's a wealth of knowledge. So we'll probably see you back again another time, Kelly. But thanks so
I would
much,
appreciate it.
and have a wonderful evening, everyone, and see you again soon.
Mitchell,
Take
bye,
care.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.